The thesis coming from the left, from Elizabeth Warren here and all of the panelists, let me simplify it because they mock the simplification of the tax code. They mock Americans who like to simplify their language. Let me simplify it first. What are they really saying? We can't do anything. Don't ask us. We're just the taxpayer. Let's give all the power to those in the executive branch or the elected officials that be without term limits. That's really what the thesis is from the left here. They're mocking the mere idea that people could be in office, that one could govern in a way that would be simple, that would be effective. Really, the basis of our entire government, if you actually think about it, it was set up with 3 different branches in order to mitigate one another's power, and it was set up to be unbelievably simple so that it wouldn't be screwed up by the establishment, by the career politicians that you now see in DC, of course, which we tried to flee in England. First, let's just start off with some of their claims and the spirit of what they're doing here. And I'm not defending Donald Trump's tax plan. I want to be clear about that. I'm not defending his tax plan because, well, you can't really defend it. It's not really been released in detail. But the attacks that they're making, they're macro attacks on the principles of Donald Trump's tax plans. The first example, Elizabeth Warren, right away claims to make her case just to the worst example, that there was no growth and the economy tanked under Reagan, I think. Go.
And that happened across the board. It happened. Americans participated. The pie got bigger and we all got a little more to eat. 1980, what happens then? Ronald Reagan, deregulation, fire the cops on Wall Street, and the big one, cut taxes for those at the top, and then invest less in education, in infrastructure, in basic research.
I love how they skipped from the New Deal to Reagan. Yeah. What happened between there? Let's skip Carter. Let's just hopscotch.
That's a bad buzzword. Don't go there.
Forget that guy? And if I just say it, I hope nobody realizes. Yeah, the economy tanked under Reagan. The word yuppie was invented when Reagan was president. It was meant to describe middle-class people, upper-middle-class people who had very well-paying jobs. You would be hard-pressed to find any piece of Americana in media that would treat the 80s as anything other than an economic boom. Yes. I mean, that's why it's known as the era of excess and cocaine and wealth and supernatural employment levels. By the way, everyone did well under Reagan. If you look at the charts, here's something that's important. This is kind of in their deck of tricks as they try and say, well, you know, the middle class tanked. What are they really trying to say? They're trying to say that the gap between the middle class and the wealthy got wider. That's what you hear Bernie Sanders saying, right? The wealthiest 1%. Okay. But the middle class were still doing better overall. Matter of fact, as upper level incomes go up, so do middle incomes and lower incomes. We know that for a fact, and this is what they do. What they want to do is play on your own selfish nature. They want to play on the most debased human selfish instinct, which is covetousness, jealousy. Let's say you have 20% of a pie that's worth $10, okay? Now, that pie grows because of the other 80%, okay? That pie is now worth $10 million, and you have 5%. Where are you better off? Are you concerned about your slice of the pie? Or are you grateful that you're better off? Are you saying, you know what? Wow, I'm amazed as to how much better I'm doing. Now, if you're focused on what someone else has that you don't have, you're never going to be happy. And that's what's required for the Democratic Party. I heard this once. I don't know who said it. Someone said, creative people don't get jealous. They get inspired. I would actually expand that to successful people. Almost all successful people, they don't get jealous, they get inspired. Something else they don't talk about, the Laffer curve. This is something that was actually sort of learned and coined under Reagan. What does it mean? There are different Laffer curves for different countries. You can see that graph. It basically means that there is a point where maximal revenue is generated. And when you start increasing taxable income, that revenue goes down. Or again, let's say, for example, if that peak occurs around 40%, that's where you get the most amount of revenue. And let's say if you do increase overall income taxes on the highest 10% of earners to 70%, you get a 10% increase in taxes, which is actually typically what you see.
Carter.
Yeah, Carter. Then it says, okay, is it worth it to increase that tax from 40% to 70% to only see a 10% increase in revenue? That's what the concept is behind the Laffer curve. Something else, Hauser's Law. You've heard us talk about this. Hauser's Law basically states the idea that you're never going to have more than 19 to 20% despite what the income tax brackets are. In other words, it doesn't matter how much you tax, that revenue almost always equals to somewhere in that 19 to 20% range. Let's widen it and say 18 to 22%. That's still, if you're taxing someone 30% or 70%, it's called Hauser's Law. Now, here's the thing. I understand some economists will disagree with it, and we'll have some people out there saying, well, this has long since been debunked. First off, it hasn't. There are still plenty of brilliant economists, some of the most brilliant economists in the world who actually still teach these concepts, even at Ivy League colleges. But let's give you that and say, okay, it's still being debated. Elizabeth Warren's book, the panel here on Bill Maher's show, acts as though, again, it's just settled. It's settled economics. None of those things apply. Let's just increase taxes. Let's increase the tax brackets, and things will be solved. They don't even allow for the idea that, hey, maybe someone isn't stupid. Maybe they just understand different points of economics than you do.
The one-page thing. They had 100 days. What happened during the first 99 and a half days?
They mock this as though simple is bad. This is a one page of, can you believe it? Yeah,
Sure.
Mine would be simpler. It would be a paragraph, flat tax. And that's what occurred for a long time throughout human history, because we believe that a flat percentage rate was what was fair, because if you make $10,000, you pay $1,000. If you make $100,000, you pay $10,000. That actually seems fair. But they mock it as though simple is wrong. And this is why I don't actually believe, I always say I'm not a centrist, and I don't believe in finding common ground. Because let's say I'm all the way over here, well, my right, your left, so, okay, you're right. Let's say I'm all the way over here on the right, okay? A one-page tax code. Let's say there's someone all the way over here. You're left again. We're going with your here because I'm concerned about the viewer. Looking out for the folks.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm here one page. They're here. Well, the current tax code is over 70,000 pages. So if you find a middle ground, I'm at one there. That's still 35,000 pages. I don't want to find that middle ground.
You have a group of people who have no idea how to govern. They don't understand public policy. They don't understand how this country interacts with the rest of the world. There are people that have never held these jobs who for the most part want to destroy the very agencies that they're representing.
Sign them up. He says it like it's a bad thing. You're having people in office who don't believe that they should suckle at the government teat forever, like Joe Biden, like John McCain. Yes,
Bernie Sanders.
I want to hire the person
Sign
who
them
doesn't
up.
want the job. And here's something. We act as though, oh, these people, they have no experience governing. You know who didn't? George Washington. George Washington's biggest experience in governing was flipping the bird to the previous government that he left to create the greatest country in the world. And here's the thing. George Washington would have been mocked by today's left for no qualifications, for his wooden grill, and he walked away from office. George Washington is one of the few examples. This is why we love him as a leader. He's one of the few people in power throughout the history of mankind to willingly walk away. Because he understood the temptation. He was saying, no, listen, you don't want me in there that long. People were begging and pleading with him to stay. George Washington was a great example of leadership as someone who's revered because of precisely that quality. But people like Carl Reiner, people like Bill Maher, cannot fathom someone like a George Washington today. Someone who would actually go into a role in government not wanting to selfishly grow their own role in government. That's a beautiful thing to me. I don't see how I'm the only one who gets it. Next clip.
Simplify our burdensome tax code.
As if the Americans can't distinguish between 3 and 7. Like,
Oh, you're talking about the tax bracket.
Yeah, it's just so nuts.
First of
No, it's not that they can't distinguish between 3 and 7. It's that the average American, despite I know you want to make it sound like maybe they're stupid if they voted for Donald Trump, it's that the average American, including brilliant Americans, can't necessarily decipher a 70,000 plus page tax code. It's not that the average American can't decipher between 3 and 7. It's that they actually can't decipher the tax code that's so complicated they have to hire accountants and H&R Block to keep up, by the way, to sustain the employment of entire wings of government that stay subsequently open because of taxpayer dollars. It's that they can't really understand exactly what the loopholes are, which is why people are paid six-figure, huge incomes just to figure that out. And it's why people fear being audited, on average, more than being mugged in the United States.
I would even say that we could discuss having a flat tax, which
No.
would be easier.
No.
But if you would simplify,
Oh, no.
tax, you mean to tell me that the
God, no.
Americans
Anything
would
else.
simplify the tax code for them? I mean, it's a
You can
nightmare
make
to do
a
tax.
Here, wait for it. Here it comes.
Without
Not
giving
saying
a giant
like that.
break
flat
to
tax
rich
code.
people.
Flat tax is another giant giveaway to the
To rich people.
Well,
Why do you
it
want to
depends.
do that?
I love, again, this is the change of words. Giveaway. So that's the flat tax is a big giveaway to the rich, which may seem confusing to people who typically understand words to mean what they actually mean. This is where we have to go back to the socialist lexicon, where the word giveaway, as a matter of fact, means not stealing money already earned.
Ooh, I see what that makes.
So in other words,
everything.
if you earn $100 and I just take $50 at gunpoint, okay? And then tomorrow I come in and say, you know what, today I'm only gonna take $40 of your $100 at gunpoint. Call me Ed McMahon because I just gave away a huge check. We do not have a tax revenue problem. We don't. We have record tax revenues in this country. We have over, I think, 1.08 trillion collected in the first quarter of 2017. Over 1.08 trillion collected. Record tax revenues that are being collected. But if you taxed every single dollar earned in this country over $1 million, every dollar over $1 million at 100%, you still would not have enough. It's not a revenue problem. We can continue, and I know some people say it's hypocritical because you talked about the Laffer curve. I'm not just talking about income tax. We have so many sources of tax revenue now. A healthcare mandate tax, another energy tax. They're hidden everywhere. There is more tax revenue than ever, and our debt's ballooning out of control. Our deficit is still out of control because we have a spending problem. And this is my problem with Donald Trump, too. I haven't seen enough spending cuts. This is something that's immensely unpopular with people in office because they promise a bunch of free crap, then they get into office and they realize, hold on a second, at some point someone's going to have to pay for this, and anytime you given someone a free lunch, you can't pull it away. Let's assume for a second that under Reagan the economy tanked, as Elizabeth Warren tried to imply. Okay, let's assume that tax revenues always went up. It went up in a linear equation if you started taxing the wealthy at 70%. Let's assume that the wealthy wouldn't leave this country and go somewhere else if you tax them over 50%. Let's assume for a second that we were actually raising enough revenue through taxes. None of it's true. But let's assume that all of their math is correct, okay? It still wouldn't change the moral reprehensibility of continued thievery. If I go into your house right now and I steal your TV and your jewelry and your cash, and I go and I give it to a homeless shelter or I give it to Salvation Army, that's nice, but I still stole your shit.
Hey, if you like this clip, it's taken from the full daily show available exclusively at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. That's for Mug Club members because we can't be dependent here on the Google, YouTube overlords. Subscribe there. We have a daily show, full hour every day. If you don't, well, there's no saving you.